Chapter 21. Password Hacking. Hacking passwords has always been a popular activity for cyber attackers, although the newer methods have evolved from simple password guessing. The Hollywood notion of the hacker is someone who sits in front of a logon screen and simply guesses the correct password out of thin air. Although this does happen, it is fairly rare. Real password hacking usually involves a lot more guesses or no guessing at all. Authentication components. To understand passwords, you really have to understand authentication systems in general. The user or device, also known as the security principal or subject, must submit something, such as a text label, a certificate, and so on, that uniquely identifies them and their logon to the authentication system service. For most traditional password scenarios, this is a label known as a username. The subject must then be able to prove ownership of the label, which is usually done by submitting another bit of information tied to the label that only the subject and the authentication system knows and agrees upon. This is what the password is. When the user submits the correct password associated with the username, that proves the subject controls the username, and the system allows them access. In other words, they are authenticated, and may track them while they are accessing the system, which is called accounting or auditing. Most operating systems also ensure that the subject is supposed to access the objects they are trying to access, a process called access control. Thus, you might hear the entire authentication process known as the 4 A's: authentication, access, auditing, and accounting. They are related but usually evaluated separately. Passwords. A password can be any acceptable set of characters that the authentication system accepts. For example, on a Microsoft Windows system, the Local Security Accounts Management (SAM) database, or the Networked Active Directory Authentication System (NTDS), can accept thousands of different characters, many of which require special keystroke combinations. For example, Alt plus 0128 to create. Authentication databases. Passwords are stored in a local and/or networked database known as the authentication database. The authentication database is usually protected or encrypted, and it is rarely directly accessible by non-privileged users. Passwords are also often stored in local and/or remote memory, if networked, while the user or device is active. Password hashes. Most typed passwords are converted into some other intermediary form for security reasons. In most traditional operating systems, passwords get converted into a cryptographic hash. The hash can be used in the authentication sequence itself, or simply stored for later authentication purposes. Common password hashes on Windows systems are LAN Manager (LM), NT LAN Manager (NT), and PBK-DF2 for local password cache storage. Linux systems often use MD5 Blowfish, created by Bruce Schneier, profiled in Chapter 3, SHA-256, or SHA-512. The best hashes create and use a random value, called the salt, during the creation and storage of the password hash. This makes it harder for a hacker obtaining the password hash to convert it back to its plaintext original value. Authentication challenges. Secure network authentication scenarios do not pass the password or the password hash across a network link. Instead, an authentication challenge is performed. Usually, the remote server, which already knows the client's password or password hash, creates a random value and performs a cryptographic operation that only the legitimate client with the same legitimate password or hash can also correctly perform. The server sends the random value to the client, and the client uses the password or intermediate representation to perform the expected calculations and sends the result back to the server. The server compares the result sent by the client to its own internally expected result for the client, and if the two agree, the client is successfully authenticated. This way, if an intruder captures the packets used in network authentication, they will not immediately have the password or the password hash, although it is often possible with cryptographic analysis to sometimes work back to one or the other over time. Authentication factors. Because passwords can easily be stolen and sometimes guessed, authentication systems are increasingly asking for additional factors for a subject to prove ownership of a logon label. There are three basic types of factors: something you know, such as a password, PIN, passphrase, or screen pattern; something you have, such as a security token, cell phone, or smart card; or something you are, such as a biometric identity, like a fingerprint, retina print, or hand geometry. In general, the more factors required to authenticate, the better. The idea is that it is harder for an attacker to steal two or more factors than it is to steal just one factor. Using two factors is known as two-factor authentication, or 2FA, and using more is known as multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Using two or more of the same factor is not as strong as using different types of factors. Hacking passwords. There are many ways to hack passwords, including the methods described in the following sections. Password guessing. Just like in the movies, hackers can simply guess a person's password. If the password is simple and the hacker knows something about the person, they can try guessing a password based on the person's interests. It's well known that users often create passwords named after themselves, loved ones, or their favorite hobbies. The hacker can manually try to guess a person's password at a logon screen, or use one of the many hacker tools for automating password guessing. If the automated password guesser blindly tries every possible password combination, it is known as a brute force guessing attack. If it uses a predefined set of possible password values, which is often a dictionary of words, then the password guessing tool is known as a dictionary password guessing attack. Most password guessers use a tool that begins with a dictionary set of words that then supplements the plaintext words with different combinations of numbers and special characters to guess at more complex passwords. Note: once in my life, I literally randomly guessed a password for a user I knew nothing about and had it work on my first try. The password I guessed was Rosebud because I had just finished watching the famous Orson Welles movie, Citizen Kane, where trying to guess that previously unknown word is the plot of the whole movie. But that was the one time in my career that this happened. Phishing. The hacker can also use a realistic-looking but fraudulent online request, via website or email, to trick the user into revealing their password. This is known as phishing. If the phishing attempt uses what was previously private or internal information, it's known as spear phishing. Hackers can also use a phone or show up in person to attempt to trick users out of their passwords. It works far more often than you would think. Keylogging. If the hacker already has elevated access to the victim's computer, they can install a program called a keylogger, which captures typed keystrokes. Keyloggers are great for capturing passwords, and they don't care if the password is long or complex. Hash cracking. If the hacker can access the victim's authentication database, they can access the stored password, or more likely, password hashes. Strong hashes are cryptographically resistant to converting back to their original plaintext forms. Weaker hashes, unsalted hashes, and even strong hashes of short passwords are subject to hash cracking. A hash cracker tries, either using brute force or dictionary methods, to input every possible password, converts it to a hash, and then compares the newly created hash to the stolen hash, If they match, then the hacker now has the plaintext password. Rainbow tables are related to traditional hash crackers. Only their hash table stores an intermediate form used for password or hash comparison that significantly speeds up the cracking. There are many free password guessing and cracking programs available on the Internet. If you're interested in trying a password hash cracker, the open-source John the Ripper, openwall.com/John/ is a great one to learn with. Credential reuse. If the hacker already has elevated access, they can steal the user's password hash or other credential representation from computer memory or the stored authentication database, and then replay it to other computers that accept authentication using the stolen credentials. This type of attack, and in particular one known as Pass the Hash, or PTH, has become quite popular over the last decade. In a traditional PTH scenario, the attacker first breaks into one or more regular end-user computers, locates the local elevated account hashes, and then uses that access to eventually access the computers or network's storage of all credentials, which essentially compromises the whole IT environment. PTH attacks have happened to nearly every company and entity connected to the Internet over the last decade. Hacking password reset portals. Many times, the quickest way to hack a password is to hack the password's related reset portal. Many authentication systems, especially the big online systems, allow the end user to answer a series of predefined questions to reset their passwords. Hackers have found that it is far easier to guess or research the answer to a particular victim's reset questions, such as what is your mother's maiden name, what is the first elementary school you went to, what was your first car, what is your favorite color, and so on, than it is to guess at their password. Many big celebrity hacks have occurred using this method. Password defenses. There are just as many ways to defend against password hacks as there are ways to attack them. Complexity and length. Long and complex passwords make it significantly harder for password guessing and cracking tools to be successful. Longer is better than complexity, unless you can get true strong entropic complexity. Today, most password experts recommend 12-character or longer passwords, and that's just for regular users. Privileged user accounts should be 16 characters or more. The length of the recommended minimum password size increases over time. However, this has no effect on credential reuse attacks like PTH attacks. Frequent changes with no repeating. Enforcing a maximum number of days that a particular password can be used, usually 90 days or less, with no repeating is a common password defense recommendation/requirement. The thinking is that it usually takes a password guesser a long period of time to guess or crack a long and complex password, but it can eventually be done with enough time and computing power. Enforcing periodic changes in the password reduces the risk that the hacker will be successful before the new password is used. Note: some recent password papers are questioning whether the traditional password defenses of long and complex, frequently changed and non-repeating passwords really does reduce risk. Although those defenses might seem on the surface to be good things, the data is showing otherwise. Check out Microsoft Research's Password Guidance. White paper by Robin Hickok. Microsoft.com/n-us/research/publication/password-guidance/ and password papers by Dr. Cormac Hurley, profiled in the next chapter, which question traditional password recommendations. Not sharing passwords between systems. This is one of the best defenses, but very hard, if not impossible, to enforce. Users should never use the same password between any system that has a different authentication database. Reusing credentials between different systems increases the risk that the hacker will compromise one of the systems, capture your shared logon credentials, and then use it to attack another. Account lockout. This is a frequent password guessing defense. For systems where hackers try to guess against active logon screens, for example interactively, the authentication system should lock out or freeze the account after a set number of incorrect password guessing attempts. The lockout can be temporary or require that the end user call the help desk to get it reactivated, or to reset it at a password reset portal. This defensive measure defeats many password guessing hackers and tools, but has its own risks, as the lockout feature can be used by the hacker to create a widespread denial-of-service lockout attack. Strong password hashes. Authentication systems should always use strong hashes and prevent the use of weak, vulnerable hashes. Most operating systems default to strong hashes, but some allow weak hashes to still be used for backward compatibility purposes. In Microsoft Windows, LM hashes are considered weak and shouldn't be used. In Linux, MD5 and SHA-1 hashes are considered weak. Don't use passwords. These days, the conventional wisdom is that password requirements are getting so long and complex that most users might be better off not using a password at all. Instead, users should use 2FA, biometrics, security tokens, digital certificates, and anything other than a simple logon name and password combination. This has been the recommendation for decades, but it is now becoming fairly common in both company networks on popular online systems. If your website allows you to use something better than a password, use it. Note: the work of the FIDO Alliance, fidoalliance.org, to get rid of passwords across the Internet is gaining momentum, unlike many of the previous attempts to do the same thing. Check it out. Credential theft defenses. Because credential theft attacks, such as PTH attacks, have become so popular lately, many operating systems come with built-in anti-credential theft attack defenses. Most of these focus on making sure the passwords or password hashes aren't available in memory to easily steal, or they don't share the password or hash across network connections. Reset portal defenses. Password reset portals are often the weakest link in an authentication system. Portals should always allow users to make up their own unique and hard-to-guess/research questions and answers. If they don't, users should give hard-to-guess non-answers to the questions and securely save the answers for later on use. For example, if the question is, "What was your mother's maiden name?" the answer could be giraffe dogfish. You are essentially turning the password reset question answer into another alternate password. Chapter 22 covers Dr. Cormac Hurley, whose research into passwords challenges conventionally held beliefs. Chapter 22. Profile. Dr. Cormac Hurley. Dr. Cormac Hurley is an unintentional disruptor. He says things that challenge long-standing dogma, which not everyone wants to hear, especially if they've invested millions of dollars and decades of resources into doing the exact opposite for years. Dr. Hurley uses data mining to seek the truth. He's even well aware that some of his contrarian views, backed by data, may take a decade or longer before people will even listen. One example is his research into computer passwords. The conventional wisdom is that passwords need to be long, complex, and frequently changed. Dr. Hurley's research, microsoft.com/n-us/research/wp-content/uploads/2016/09/pushingonstring.pdf, showed that the globally accepted security reasoning, supported by nearly every computer security expert in existence, and a requirement on every computer security guideline ever produced, is probably wrong at the very least, and is likely exacerbating the problem. Dr. Hurley's research showed that long and complex passwords don't mitigate most password hacking these days, and often result in higher risk due to end-user issues, such as writing passwords down or reusing on different sites. He's even been bold enough to say that most computer security advice is a waste of time. Microsoft.com/n-us/wp-content/uploads/2016/02/so-long-and-no-thanks.pdf. And he does it with data and evidence. Dr. Hurley is my kind of guy. Dr. Hurley got his PhD from Columbia University, an MSEE from Georgia Tech, and a BE from University College Cork, Ireland. He is currently a principal researcher at Microsoft Research's Redmond Machine Learning Department. Although he's only been in the computer security world for 10 years, he has written a ton of research papers and been quoted and interviewed in the mainstream media, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and NPR. I asked Dr. Hurley how he got into computer security. He replied, "Serendipity, I think. My background is in audio and video signal processing and digital photography. That field is very data-centric. You have to collect a lot of data, analyze it, get statistics, and figure out the truth. It really prepared me well for computer security, although I was surprised that almost none of that was going on. I guess I got into computer security when someone sent me a new proposed anti-phishing defense based on logo analysis, which involved some of the things I specialized in, to review. I saw many flaws. It wasn't robust enough. I eventually got into passwords and computer security. I saw lots of declarative statements about passwords, but not any evidence that any of things being recommended actually worked. It struck me as strange, coming from my background, that no one was doing what I expected was already done, which is collecting data, making experiments using 2 different groups, including a control group, and looking at the results. Instead, people were making declarative statements which, even after decades of use, didn't have the data to support them. Even though data can be scarce in computer security, data is my ground truth. That's the way we answer questions. Anything else is an intermediate halfway measure or worse. We have some framework for protecting high-value assets, which is to do absolutely everything we can. But what about regular business assets? Clearly, we have to make priorities. We can't do everything. It would be ridiculously difficult to do everything, but tell me which ones I can neglect. Rank the list, or give me some way of ranking the list. You can answer the hard questions with data because the alternative is going in circles. There are a lot of people in the computer security world who are either ignoring Dr. Hurley's work or bothered by it. I asked him about that, and he said, "I didn't come into the computer security world to intentionally, deliberately antagonize anyone. But because I've only recently come into the security world, I didn't have the long-standing cultural biases that many others get. I had a different background, driven by data and the need to see supporting data. When I didn't see good data, it allowed me to ask fundamental questions about things which the culture had already long accepted. I wanted to get the data, test, and do the empirical analysis. Do things with math. It's not only a desirable way of doing things, but necessary. You might have a model of how you think 2 billion users will behave, but 2 billion users will respond the way they are going to respond regardless of your model. You can hope that it happens the same way, but you have to measure what happens to see if there is any resemblance to what you said would happen in your model. and if your model is wrong, change it. Dr. Hurley's password research has really turned the computer security industry's dogma on its ear. I wondered how he felt about the likelihood of his research and password proposals possibly taking a decade or longer before they become commonly accepted. He said, "Well, NIST.org, had a call for comments on their password recommendations. I wrote back, and they are trying to get the battleship turned around. I can totally see why it's frustrating to computer security people and organizations. They've been told something was true by everyone for 30 years, and now just a few people are saying that's wrong. There are 1,000 other people saying the reverse, and even if the few were better backed up by data, I can see how it would be frustrating, especially for CSOs and CIOs. I've had the ability and luxury to sit down and do the research, collect data, and consider alternatives. But CSOs and CIOs don't have the luxury of time to research just one issue. They are seeing a bunch of contradictory messages and trying to determine which ones they need to pay attention to. They just have to do their best and use their wisdom as to what happens." I asked Dr. Hurley what he thought was the biggest problem in computer security. He replied, "We know how to perfectly protect high-value assets like nuclear launch missile codes. Compromising the asset is not allowed, and so we do everything that's possible to protect them. Everything less critical than the top priority creates a decision of what to do and what not to do. We're not very good at reasoning what is enough with everything else below the highest criticalities. We don't have really good tools and data to make the cases about what must be done. The net effect is that people do the best they can, muddling through, essentially randomly making the decisions they've been told they have to make. It's easier with the high-value assets. We can more easily articulate the risk, quantify it, and create a policy. When you don't have a high-value asset to protect, we end up doing the things we can more easily articulate and quantify than the stuff that would be more beneficial if we tried to quantify it. For example, I'm not sure choosing a super strong password is in my top 10 list of things I think people should be doing, but it certainly gets a huge share of attention and resources. And that hurts us all in the end." For more information on Dr. Cormac Hurley. For information about Dr. Cormac Hurley, check out these resources. Dr. Cormac Hurley's website, cormac.hurley.org/ Dr. Cormac Hurley on Twitter, twitter.com/Cormac Hurley. Dr. Cormac Hurley's Microsoft profile, microsoft.com/n-us/research/people/Cormac/ Dr. Cormac Hurley's Google Scholar citations, scholar.google.com/citations?user equals 1 FWHEVY AAAJ H1 equals EN and OI equals AO. Chapter 23. Wireless Hacking. Today's computing world works on wireless networking. It's a rarity that anyone plugs in a network cable to their desktop or laptop computer, and no one does that for their cell phones and other computing devices, even though the wired world is faster and more secure. It is a wireless world, a world that hackers are constantly attacking. The wireless world. The wireless world is big and broad. The wireless networking that we have on our home network access points is the 802.11 Wi-Fi standard, but the term wireless encompasses a huge swath of the electromagnetic spectrum, which includes X-rays, light, radio, and other forms of wireless energy. The identification and allocation of a portion of the wireless spectrum is determined by the number of waves per second, i.e. frequency, and distance of the wavelength. 802.11 is the wireless networking standard among the 900 MHz and 2.4, 3.6, 5.0, 5.8, and 60 GHz frequencies. The computers in our lives use many different wireless technologies, including magnetism, light, satellite, terrestrial radio, Bluetooth, near-field communications, NFC, RFID, and microwave. Much of the wireless spectrum is controlled by laws and regulatory bodies, which is good because without them, much of the spectrum would be unusable and unsafe. Types of wireless hacking. Each part of the wireless spectrum and the various communication standards for it determine the types of hacking that are likely to be performed on them, although the sheer number of attacks on the Wi-Fi spectrum is a good representation of what can happen in them all. In general, most wireless hacking is done to either conduct eavesdropping, capture information, unauthorizedly share the wireless communications broadcast spectrum, cause denial of service, control the service, or attack attached clients. Attacking the access point. Every wireless technology has one or more access points, APs, to allow transmitting and/or receiving, and these are often connected to terrestrial or other types of communication systems. Hackers can directly attack the AP to compromise the wireless communications. They can crack the AP's admin password, change its operations, conduct eavesdropping, or trick the victim into connecting to a rogue AP. Denial of service. The simplest form of wireless hacking is crudely interrupting or overpowering the legitimate communications signal, otherwise known as jamming or flooding. If I can stop you from communicating over your intended wireless channel and deny you service, it becomes useless. Or a hacker can even take over the channel. If flooding is done correctly, the AP may accidentally reconnect to another illegitimate resource. Guessing a wireless channel password. Some wireless technologies require a password or other authentication proofs for a client to join the wireless spectrum provided by the participating AP. Rarely do APs lock out devices after a set number of incorrect guesses, so wirelessly cracking devices can guess away until they uncover the correct password. Session hijacking. Many attack types have the ultimate goal of taking over the victim's legitimate communication session. This is often done by flooding the wireless network, causing a disruption, and then either tricking the client into allowing the hacker's client to take over, modifying the session in an unauthorized way, or tricking the client into connecting to a rogue AP. These types of attacks have become very popular, especially by hackers trying to steal HTML website cookies over shared wireless networks found in public locations, such as coffee shops, airports, and so on. Stealing information. Stealing information is more of an outcome of wireless hacking, but I'm treating it here as its own hacking method because oftentimes the entire hacking session is done to steal information. Such is the case with RFID hacking. Millions of credit cards are RFID-enabled to allow the holder to make purchase transactions without having to insert the card physically into a credit card device. Hackers with RFID scanners can obtain credit card information by simply using a device to surreptitiously energize the RFID transmitter. RFID is also being used on other devices and documents, like cell phones and passports. Note: electromagnet eavesdropping has been used against devices that do not intentionally communicate wirelessly. All electronic devices emit an electromagnetic field, which can be read, sometimes from far away, with the right sensitive listening device. Physically locating a user. Many hackers, often law enforcement types, use the traits and weaknesses of a particular wireless technology to locate participating clients in their devices. Law enforcement is particularly fond of using stingray devices, which create fake APs to physically locate intended targets by their cell phone location. Read n.wikipedia.org/wiki/stingray_phone_tracker to learn more about these fascinating devices and their questionable legality. Some wireless hacking tools. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of hacking tools that can be used to perform wireless hacking. Any general-purpose protocol capturing program like Wireshark, wireshark.com, or Ethereal, sourceforge.net/projects/ethereal/ can be used, but most wireless hackers use a program specialized in it. These tools are great ways to learn about wireless technologies and hacking. AirCrack-NG. The most popular 802.11 wireless cracking tool is AirCrack-NG. Released in 2005 as an open-source wireless auditing tool, this frequently updated tool has become both an attacker and defender tool of choice. Its creator, Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais, is profiled in the next chapter. Kismet. Kismetwireless.net/ has become another of the go-to 802.11 hacking tools. It can help someone break into a wireless network or alert you if someone else is trying to do the same to you. Fern Wi-Fi Hacker. Fern Wi-Fi Hacker, github.com/savio-code/fern-wi-fi-cracker helps hackers with many of the hacking methods I mentioned earlier. Firesheep. Walk into a coffee shop and fire up Firesheep. codebutler.com/firesheep. It will look for and steal any HTML cookies it can find on the shared wireless media. Stealing HTML cookies was possible way before Firesheep came into being, but Firesheep made it as easy as starting a browser. Firesheep was the tool that started many places seriously thinking about wireless and website security. Wireless hacking defenses. There are as many defenses as there are attacks. Frequency hopping. One of the biggest early problems with any wireless technology is that anyone could jam it. Famous Hollywood actress Hedy Lamarr and her composer partner George Antheil created and patented the frequency hopping spread spectrum wireless technology during World War II. Frequency hopping works as a defense because the legitimate signal is sent over different frequencies very quickly that only the sender and receiver have agreed upon, or computed ahead of time. Anyone wishing to disrupt the signal would need to jam a wide set of the spectrum. Without this defense, most of what we use as wireless today would not be possible. Read about Lamarr's discovery today. My favorite book dedicated to the subject is Hedy's Folly by Richard Rhodes. Predefined client identification. Many wireless technologies have defenses that only allow predefined clients to connect. In the 802.11 spectrum, many APs allow only devices with predefined MAC addresses to connect. An AP can also only accept digital certificates from predefined, trusted, digital certificate certification authorities, or look at the device's unique hardware address. Any identification parameter can be used. Strong protocols. No defense beats a strong protocol. 802.11 started off with Wired Equivalent Privacy, WEP, which was later found to be very vulnerable, irreparably so. It was replaced with Wi-Fi Protected Access, WPA, which has proven to be remarkably resistant to attack ever since. WPA can be used with passwords, digital certificates, or other enterprise authentication methods. There have been a few successful attacks against various versions of WPA, but far fewer than most experts would have predicted, and most can be remediated by moving to a different WPA method. Long passwords. If the wireless AP requires a password to join, make sure that the password is very long, 30 characters or longer. The same thing applies to making sure the AP's admin password has been changed from the default and is long and complex as well. Patching access points. Access points often have vulnerabilities, so applying the vendor's patches in a timely manner is a must. Electromagnetic shielding. For remote wireless attacks, like those against RFID-enabled credit cards, putting anti-electromagnetic shielding around the physical transmitter or the whole device can prevent eavesdropping. EM shielding is also known as EMI shielding, RF shielding, or Faraday cages. Some electronic devices, such as some cell phones, contain shielding, but most people concerned about EM eavesdropping buy third-party shielding cases. Shielded cable, like that used in normal cable television cabling, is also shielded by default to prevent unintentional signal interruption. There are far too many ways to commit wireless hacking and ways to defend against those hacking methods than can fit in a short chapter, although I've hopefully summarized some of the major ways. Chapter 24 profiles Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais, the creator of the Wi-Fi security auditing suite Aircrack NG. Chapter 24 Profile Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais. The previous chapter covered wireless hacking, and no one in the wireless hacking computing community is more respected than Belgium-born Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais, the creator of Aircrack NG. aircrack-ng.org/. Composed of 16 different programs, Aircrack NG is the most popular free Wi-Fi security auditing tool site. Dautrep de Beauvais first released Aircrack NG in February 2006. Today, every Linux hacking distro includes it by default, and if you want to do wireless hacking or auditing, you probably either use Aircrack NG or used it before you paid for some commercial product that does similar things. Aircrack NG is so popular that it shows up in TV shows and movies. aircrack-ng.org/movies.html that are trying to realistically portray their actor as an uber-cool wireless hacker. Dautrep de Beauvais has also created and released a wireless intrusion detection program called OpenWIPS-NG. openwips-ng.org/. I asked Dautrep de Beauvais how he got into computer security. He replied, "I got into computers and programming very early, between 6 and 8 years old. I was immediately interested in programming, and I created a tiny game even back then. As any kid, I first played the games on a computer and then got bored with them. That's when I decided to look through the books that came with the computer and found out I could program it. My native language being French and manuals being in English, it was not easy to figure out how to get into the programming mode that offered some kind of basic language. On top of that, you couldn't save your code, so I was forced to write it down on paper. To this day, I still remember what the game is and how to beat it. I then got into computer security through the program Aircrack, which was originally created by Christophe Devine. I was contributing to it very small patches to fix issues here and there, and talking to the developer when all of a sudden in December 2005, he stopped being involved in the project. He was the only one developing it, and back then, it was only seen/perceived as a tool to crack your neighbor's WEP key. All of a sudden, he disappeared from IRC and never connected back. Then rumors of what happened to him started to spread in the IRC channel. I guess spread by friends of his, enough for me to start downloading all the resources, releases, and other stuff before the server was shut down completely a few days later. There were a lot of rumors at the time about what happened to him, but later I met him a few times and learned that he was just too busy with his real job, and it was either spend time developing aircrack for free or keep his job. But at the time, we didn't know what happened. After 3 months of waiting, I decided to start making my own version. That was in December 2005. I've never made a profit off of it, but I love the project and the people I've met and the travel. And even though I've never made a profit for Aircrack NG, I got a job because of it. I've always liked the challenge of hacking my own network. And I'm starting my own business now. My parents were even against me doing Aircrack, telling me I would get in trouble as I was starting. And I'm actually glad I didn't listen to them, since that's one of the best things that's happened to me. I had the chance to meet a lot of awesome people, and most of my friends now are people I've met directly or indirectly thanks to the project. I asked Dautrep de Beauvais if he thinks wireless security has improved over the years. He said, yes, definitely. When I first started out, most of wireless hacking was cracking weak WEP keys. Now WEP is discouraged or isn't even a choice. Now wireless security uses WPA and WPA2, and the encryption is pretty strong. Now, to break into a wireless network, you have to find a flaw, either in the embedded wireless chip. See youtube.com/watch?v equals 4WEQPIYFB50 to see an example of what I'm talking about. Or the human flaw. You can have the best encryption in the world, but if the vendor or the owner only uses an 8-character Wi-Fi password, then we'll be able to break it. Here's another example. At the last apartment I rented, they used the MAC address of the access point as a key, and told me I just need to flip the AP over to know the key. Well, this can be found easily if you have a network card capable of monitor mode, and I could most likely decrypt the other tenant's traffic if I wanted to try. To top it off, they wouldn't allow us to change it. The thing is that some vendors sell devices with a pre-generated passphrase, which is usually some kind of hash based on the MAC address mixed in various ways. Here is an example to illustrate it. A cable modem from a popular vendor came with WPA or WPA2 with the passphrase set to the vendor's 4-character name, followed by the last 4 hexadecimal values of the MAC address, which means you only have to go through 10,000 combinations to find the right key if you don't know what you're doing, which is going to take a minute or two at longest. I asked what the biggest problem in computer security is. He said, there are a lot of big problems in computer security, but the common denominators of all of those problems are the users themselves. They want convenience and security, as in privacy, data encryption. However, security and convenience are pretty much enemies. You can't have both at the same time. The more convenience, the less security you have. And obviously, more security will be a lot less convenient. For more information on Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais. For more information about Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais, check out these resources. Video of Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais and Rick Farina's DEF CON presentation on wireless hacking. youtube.com/watch?v equals XQPPQQV_884. PDF of Thomas Dautrep de Beauvais and Rick Farina's slideshow from their DEF CON presentation on wireless hacking. defcon.org/images/defcon-16/DE_Beauvais-Farina.pdf. Chapter 25. Penetration Testing. This chapter covers the requirements that make a hacker a legal professional penetration tester, plus other hints that can help any pen tester's career. In addition, I cover the most sought-after certifications. My penetration testing highlights. There is no doubt that penetration testing was one of the more enjoyable periods of my career. Hacking is fun. It's hard to pick the best projects I participated in, but the following sections examine some of the most memorable ones. Hacked every cable box in the country. We had been hired to see if we could break into a new cable box that the largest cable company in the world was planning to release. I used a port scanner to enumerate all the network ports, which found about a dozen open ports. I then used Nikto, a web server scanner tool, to scan all the ports, hoping that one of the ports might have a web interface. One did. Nikto identified one of the ports as an obscure web server software program that I never heard of, and said it had a particular vulnerability. But when I tried to exploit the vulnerability, it was not exploitable. But I knew the web server software was old, which meant it was likely full of old bugs that newer web servers had long ago patched. The first thing I tried was something known as a directory traversal attack. Essentially, I typed in http://.///// and it worked. I was now the admin and had complete control of the cable box. We reported the vulnerability to the customer, and the next day, every senior executive in the company was flying in for a presentation I had to give. It turns out that this particular vulnerability was present on every cable box, millions of them, that the company had in the country, and they were all connected to the Internet. Simultaneously hacked a major television network and pornography. For the same company as in the previous cable box story, we were hired to see if we could steal pornography, which was one of the cable company's top revenue generators, and also to see if we could steal major feature movies for the same reason. We were stuck in one of the company's computer rooms with 2 cable boxes and 2 televisions that were running 24/7, one showing pornography and the other showing major feature movies. As you might imagine, watching pornography for days upon end quickly became monotonous. But that didn't stop dozens of people from stopping by to check up on us each day. For the record, we were able to steal both pornography and major feature movies and prove that we could steal customers' credit card numbers. We even used a cross-site scripting exploit to take over the entire cable company from a single cable box. We had found that the cable box was running a web server and contained firewall logs. The firewall logs contained a cross-site scripting error. We attacked the cable box in such a way that we knew that we were injecting additional hacking attacks, in this case one that would retrieve admin passwords. Then we called the cable company and asked one of the techs to check our firewall logs because we were wondering if we were under a hacker attack. When the company's help desk technician checked out the cable box log, the technician's admin password popped up on our screens. It turns out that admin password was the same admin password used across the entire enterprise. Hacked a major credit card company. As part of a certification test, my company was hired to see how much we could hack a test website. There was a contest to see how much we could hack the website, how many vulnerabilities we could find and take advantage of. We were competing against dozens of other companies, and whoever found the most vulnerabilities would win the contest, get the certification, and get hired to certify potentially tens of thousands of other websites. One of the members on my team was able to not only thoroughly hack the website, but our team ended up being able to completely own the customer's production environment. We won the contest. Created a camera virus. One day an idea came to mind about how I could get my malware code to automatically execute from a digital camera media card. I tried out my trick, and it worked. I showed a coworker, and he realized that it would work from any removable media card. We tested my code some more, and it worked. It worked across digital cameras, music players, and cell phones. My employer at the time, a penetration testing company, was delighted. We decided that I would present my findings at an upcoming Black Hat conference. I also reported my findings to the involved vendor. They verified the issue and asked if they could have several months to create a patch to fix the problem. It was a dilemma. If I waited, the content would not be as exciting at Black Hat. It would be old patched news. If I didn't wait, I left the vendor and their customers exposed until the vendor could hurriedly create a fix. I remember being very torn between both outcomes. Ultimately, I decided I was a good guy hacker, and my primary concern was more about making sure the computing world was safer and less about my own ego and fame. I gave the vendor more time. A few months later, another event publicly exposed the same vulnerability, but the vendor was ready for it by then and released an immediate patch. My contribution to its discovery got buried in the news, but my camera virus never did become a huge threat, which means we all won. How to be a pen tester. Penetration testing, pen testing, is all the legal hacking and fun you could ever want. It requires more than just the ability to hack into computers and devices, although that is a given starting point. Hacker methodology. In order to be a successful pen tester, you'll need to follow the same hacking methodology steps that were covered in Chapter 2. 1. Information gathering. 2. Penetration. 3. Optional, guarantee future easier access. 4. Internal reconnaissance. 5. Optional, horizontal or vertical movement. 6. Intended action execution. 7. Optional, covering tracks. I won't cover the steps again in this chapter, but suffice to say that pen testers are hackers, and they will usually follow the same steps. But being a legal pen tester requires more than testing. Get documented permission first. The single most important thing that separates an illegal hacker from a legal pen tester is having permission to attack/test the assets you are investigating. You must have prior documented signed permission from the company or person who owns the assets, or has the legal authority from the owner. Looking for and finding a vulnerability in someone's website and then asking them for a job is not ethical. Many new pen testers looking for their first professional job try this tactic. They often think they are being helpful and that maybe the company they are contacting will find their discovery to be incredibly helpful and offer them a job. Instead, they are usually seen as unethical, threatening, and possibly illegal, regardless of their true, original intent. If you truly accidentally come across a vulnerability while surfing the web or messing with a device, confidentially report it to the owner/vendor, and follow up with the owner if they have questions. You may even get work out of it, but don't directly request a job or money. Get a signed contract. Penetration testers always get a signed contract. The contract should include the names of the contracting parties, the scope of the engagement, which targets, dates of the project, what will be done, and so on. A non-disclosure agreement, NDA, to protect both parties, what tools and techniques will be used, and an indemnity disclaimer warning of possible operational interruption despite better efforts otherwise. If you don't have any contract templates to use, contact a lawyer and/or look around on the internet for pen testing contract examples. Reporting. The height of professionalism is a well-written, detailed report. It should include a short executive summary at the beginning, followed by more detailed descriptions of the project, scope, what was done, and the findings. include the detailed findings as separate attachments. Many consultants think the longer the report, the better. Personally, I think shorter reports with sufficient detail to back up the findings are read and appreciated by customers, but always have the more extensive details ready to deliver and talk about. Certifications. Get certified. Certifications don't mean that you are smarter or dumber than someone else who doesn't have certifications, but they can absolutely get you the job over someone else who doesn't have them. Certifications are easy-to-see statements of someone's bare minimum knowledge and expertise. The following sections discuss certifications that I'm familiar with and recommend. CISSP. There is no doubt that the International Information System Security Certifications Consortium's ISC squared ISC2.org/ Certified Information System Security Professional CISSP certification ISC2.org/CISSP/default.ASPX is the most coveted and accepted computer security certification of them all. It's a general computer security knowledge exam that covers 8 different Common Body of Knowledge (CBK) domains. The certification test consists of 250 multiple-choice test questions that must be answered in under 6 hours. Candidates must already have 4 to 5 years of professional experience in 2 or more of the CBK domains, and they must be endorsed by another previous CISSP holder. The initial exam cost is $599. SANS Institute. I'm a huge fan of anything the sysadmin, networking, and security SANS Institute, SANS.org, does, whether it be training, research, education, books, or certifications. I profile the co-founder, Stephen Northcutt, in Chapter 42. If you're interested in being a respected technical expert, this is your cert. They even offer 2 master-level accredited degrees under the brand of the SANS Technology Institute. SANS has a host of certifications ranging from very niche-specific security topics, such as malware analyzing, firewalls, host security and security controls, to their hugely respected Global Information Assurance Certification, GIAC Security Expert, giac.org/certifications/get-certified/roadmap designation. GIAC certifications are classified in the following subject areas: cyber defense and ICS, penetration testing, digital forensics and incident response, developer, management and leadership, security expert. Some of their most popular GIAC exams are GIAC Information Security Professional, giac.org/certification/GISP, GIAC Certified Incident Handler, giac.org/certification/GCIH, and GIAC Reverse Engineering Malware, giac.org/certification/GREM. But their courses cross the gamut, including ones for Windows, web servers, penetration testing, Unix security, wireless networking, programming, leadership, and program management. GIAC testing is meant to be taken after attending SANS training, which usually lasts a week. If a GIAC test is taken in conjunction with the official training, then the GIAC test is $659. But you can challenge, not take the official training, any test for $1,149. If you are interested in Unix and Linux certification, SANS also offers a GIAC Certified Unix Security Administrator, GCUX certification. giac.org/certification/certified-unix-security-administrator-GCUX. Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH. The EC Council's Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH, ecouncil.org/program/certified-ethical-hacker-CEH/certification is well respected and essentially teaches you how to be a white hat hacker or professional penetration tester. CEH introduced me to some interesting hacking tools that I still use to this day. The exam is a maximum of 4 hours for 125 multiple-choice questions. The application eligibility fee is $100. EC Council has a bunch of other useful exams, including Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator, cert.ecouncil.org/computer-hacking-forensic-investigator.html, Licensed Penetration Tester, cert.ecouncil.org/licensed-penetration-tester.html, Certified Incident Handler, cert.ecouncil.org/ec-council-certified-incident-handler.html, and Certified Disaster Recovery Professional, cert.ec-council.org/ec-council-disaster-recovery-professional.html. They even have an exam for a Chief Information Security Officer, cert.ec-council.org/certified-chief-information-security-officer.html. CompTIA Security Plus. The Computing Technology Industry Association, CompTIA, certification.comptia.org/ offers entry-level but comprehensive exams in IT infrastructure support, A+, certification.comptia.org/certifications/A, networking, Network Plus, certification.comptia.org/certifications/network, and security, Security Plus, certification.comptia.org/certifications/security. Because a CompTIA exam is often the first exam many people new to the computer industry take, it unfortunately got the reputation for being too basic of a certification and easy. This is not true. The exams are very comprehensive, and you must study hard to be assured of passing. CompTIA Security Plus certification covers network security, cryptography, identity management, compliance, operation security, threats, and host security, among other topics. You get 90 minutes to take a maximum of 90 questions, and the price is $311. ISACA. Information Systems Audit and Control Association, ISACA, offers a range of professional respected exams on auditing, management, and compliance. Certifications include Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, Certified in the Governance of Enterprise IT, CGIT, and Certified in Risk and Information Systems Control, CRISC. If you're an accountant or auditor, these exams can attest to your skills as they relate to computers and computer security. Vendor-specific certifications. Many vendors like Microsoft, Cisco, and Red Hat offer computer security-specific exams. Years ago, Microsoft had several security-specific specialist exams, like MCSE, Security. But as security became a general concern for all platforms and technologies, Microsoft started to bake all the security questions and testing into all their exams. That trend is being somewhat reversed by the announcement by Microsoft of their new in-development Securing Windows Server 2016 exam. Microsoft.com/n-us/learning/exam-70-744.aspx. The exam goes far beyond just technically securing Windows Server 2016. It covers red-green forest design, just-in-time administration, just-enough administration, and Microsoft's latest security technologies like Advanced Threat Analytics, ATA. Microsoft security techs may want to take Microsoft's Security Fundamentals test first. Microsoft.com/n-us/learning/exam-98-367.aspx for $127. Cisco certification exams have always had the reputation for industry respect and toughness to pass. Cisco's Cisco Certified Inter-Network Expert, CCIE certification, cisco.com/c/n/us/training-events/training-certifications/certifications/expert/ccie-program.html, is known as the hardest to pass in the industry. According to Cisco, fewer than 3% of Cisco exam students will ever obtain it, even after paying thousands of dollars, creating home labs, and spending an average of 18 months studying for it. Cisco's Certified Network Associate, CCNA Security Certification, cisco.com/c/n/us/training-events/training-certifications/certifications/ccna-security.html is easier to obtain and still very well respected. You must first hold any other valid Cisco certification to take the CCNA Security. After you have your CCNA Security, or any past CCIE certification, you can take the Cisco Certified Network Professional CCNP Security exam. cisco.com/c/n/us/training-events/training-certifications/certifications/professional/ccnp-security.html, but the CCIE Security exam, cisco.com/c/n/us/training-events/training-certifications/expert/ccie-security.html, is the Mac Daddy Cisco Security exam. It consists of both a 2-hour written exam, which must be passed first, and then an 8-hour lab portion. All Cisco certification exams are hard, but if you get your CCIE Security certification, you'll be able to earn a very good living almost anywhere in the world. Red Hat has dozens of certification exams. redhat.com/n/services/all-certifications-exams, and like other major vendors, it offers at least one security specialty exam. Red Hat Security exam is called Red Hat Certificate of Expertise in Server Hardening. redhat.com/n/services/certification/rhcoe-server-hardening. Besides normal Linux server hardening information, successful candidates have to be prepared to handle common vulnerabilities and exposure, CVE, and Red Hat Security Advisory, RHSA, reports. The price is $600. The Linux Professional Institute, LPI, lpi.org/, offers a vendor-neutral Linux security exam, lpi.org/study-resources/lpic-3-303-exam-objectives/. The LPIC 3 Exam 303 Security Exam covers a host of security topics, and candidates must have successfully passed 4 prior lower-level LPI exams. LPI Level 3 exams, which LPIC 3 303 is, cost $188 to take. As mentioned earlier in this chapter, SANS also offers a GIAC-certified Unix Security Administrator, GCUX certification. GIAC.org/certification/certified-Unix-security administrator-GCUX. Apple doesn't appear to have a security-specific exam, but the normal OS exams, such as Apple El Capitan, training.apple.com/pdf/elcapitan101.pdf, and Mac Integration Basics, training.apple.com/pdf/mac_integration_basics_1010.pdf, have some security components. Every certification I've studied for and taken has improved my skills. Getting certified can only help your knowledge, career, and ability to get work. Be ethical. Be ethical and professional. Never conduct unauthorized actions or seek to improve your own position over the commitment and needs of the customer. If you're wondering if something is ethical, it probably isn't. Chapter 50 covers the Hacker Code of Ethics. Minimize potential operational interruption. Try your best to never cause a customer operational interruption. Many penetration testing tools have safety modes that remove the higher-risk tests. Always start out by thoroughly testing your tools and methodologies before initiating them more widely. I've only caused widespread operational interruption once, and it still haunts me. It occurred because I did not do enough appropriate testing before the wide-scale deployment. If you follow all the steps provided in this chapter, you should be a successful penetration tester routinely invited back for more projects. Chapter 26 covers Aaron Higby, one of the best penetration testers I've ever known. And Chapter 27 profiles Benild Joseph, a penetration testing specialist, cybersecurity expert, and renowned ethical hacker.